Hi everybody, and welcome to Market Shapers. We are really excited today because we are joined by Ryan Streiff of the Perry Miller Streiff Group of Dave Perry Miller. And Ryan, welcome.
Thank you.
Let's start because we are in a very cool listing of yours, and so I thought maybe we could talk a little bit about where we're at today.
Sure. We're here at 3509 Crescent in Highland Park. It's the old Highland Park installation. What makes this house really special is just the attention to detail we were talking about a few minutes ago, from start to finish. But this seller had this constructed circa 2001, and it was actually applauded by HRH Prince Charles.
Oh, wow.
In a letter to the architect, Scott Merrill, who's out of Florida. So received a lot of good press from that,
Yeah.
and it's on a little over half an acre with a house across the street that just closed that was listed for $10 million and a lot for $4,750,000. So it's a really great opportunity for somebody that wants to come in. There's a guest house in the background here that's really phenomenal. So it's, from an architectural standpoint, it's the people that really get architecture,
Yeah.
that understand this property and the proximity to the Travis Walk, Katy Trail, things like that.
Well, and just when we were sitting here talking, kind of getting ready, we noticed even like the attention to detail of the lighting,
Yeah.
you know, in some of the rooms. And so
Yeah.
there's so much detail's been put into it. So
Yeah, for someone who's an art collector, you know, that's what will resonate with this house. But really, people that are kind of get, like I said, architecture and that understand it start to finish. This the attention to detail.
yeah, and there's nothing wrong with living in a house that Prince Charles is aware of.
Yeah, that doesn't hurt.
Yeah, right, absolutely. Well, to kind of get started, I thought maybe what we do is try a little bit about how your journey into real estate started.
Mm-hmm.
You know, how you got to kind of to this point.
You know, I went to SMU, grew up in Lake Highlands, and got at SMU and went into investment banking, corporate finance after that. My mom was a real estate agent at Ebby Halliday that entire time, and just a desk job, even though it was really good experience, was just not for me, even though I spent a lot of time behind the desk today.
Yeah.
But you know, being in control of one's business, I'm kind of in a family of entrepreneurs, and so it was a natural lead-in to join my mom and start in real estate, even though that was not your typical career path after someone that's kind of on that finance trajectory. But it was in 2001, I left investment banking, whenever that was kind of going downhill. So it was a good time to get out of that business. And anyway, since then, 2 years later, I joined Dave Perry Miller, and then 3 years into that is where Dave and I kind of got connected. Really, it was more to do with the rental properties I started accumulating, and he thought that was smart, and told me, hey, if you find one and you can't do it, and I said, well, Dave, I can do one about every year and a half, so I can help you right now.
Yeah.
And you know, within a month or so, he had one under contract, and then he asked me, could you help me with this? Could you help me with that? And that was 8 or 9 years ago, and that's when I started, you know, co-listing and doing things with Dave to help run his book of business.
Yeah. Well, it's been an amazing partnership, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, one of the things that we want to focus a little bit on with you, because you have this amazing expertise that I know a lot of people are really intrigued by, but you know, we're sitting in this amazing listing, and so you represent some of the, you know, really great sellers and some of the great properties in our marketplace. And so, how did that kind of first come about? You know, as you started kind of realizing that you had maybe an interest into it, and then kind of an expertise in that as well.
Well, I have to give credit where credit is due. I mean, it started with Dave Perry Miller.
Yeah.
So, you know, Dave was quietly our number one salesperson in the firm, and I know he doesn't take as active a role today, but at that point he was showing houses, doing everything. And so, you know, I tell people often, it's amazing what the power that someone like Dave can do for another agent who has the kind of wherewithal but not the experience. And so, showing up with him to a listing appointment, Dave would often say, you know, people would be wondering, like, who is this guy sitting there next to Dave? And oftentimes I didn't say a word until the very end. I'd be like, hey, I'm Ryan. But, you know, Dave would kind of launch in, and, you know, it's Dave, right?
Yeah.
But he would say, look, you're going to be not just in good hands, but great hands with Ryan helping. And he would often say, you know, Ryan works as hard as I used to work in my 30s. And it's amazing what just those sentence or two can do for somebody for that opportunity. And that's what's the hardest thing, and I think in the upper end market is just getting an at bat. And so that's what he did for me. And I think if you work hard and you communicate regularly, just all the things that people do, it's not that different. But there is a heightened sense for, I guess, a lack of tolerance for dropping the ball and the, you know, missing a detail in a contract and things like that everything's just a little bit more heightened, I would say.
Yeah. So it certainly sounds like almost having kind of that mentor partnership in the beginning. So someone that was, maybe they're in real estate, they aren't representing a lot of properties that would, be considered in that higher end,
Right.
but they're interested in it, finding someone that they can partner with,
Yes.
have a mentor, again, to increase those at-bat opportunities seems like that's kind of the way of getting in a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's natural for an agent to have an opportunity and maybe they have a really solid in. Maybe they're even a relative of that person and it's
Right.
a $5 million house. Oftentimes they're not going to get the listing even if they think they are going to because they just don't have the experience and that person can afford a $5 million house because they're probably pretty smart.
Right.
And so they're probably going to go with someone with experience. So why not find someone within Dave Perry Miller, partner with them. Yes, you make less money, but you've increased your odds of getting that listing
Right.
probably 2 or 3-fold.
Right.
And plus you have somebody else to split the duties of the showings, which, as Dave Perry Miller would often say, the agent to meet world is, it reads better than it lives. People see, my team with all these big listings, but, we have to be prepared. And if you're doing your job for the sellers, you're going to make sure that you're not the one getting in the way of a listing being shown. And so we take great pride in that. And that's the reason why I've tried to do for the agents on my team what Dave did for me is now with my experience and, where Dave gave me those opportunities that have kind of grown to where we are today is do the same thing for them when we go into that listing opportunity. A lot of the agents of our team could very well get that listing opportunity on their own, but I'm just increasing the odds and then helping to kind of split some of the responsibilities to, and then the whole idea is just have more listings, to have more at-bats.
Right.
So.
And as you're getting those listings, kind of a good transition into it. Talk a little bit about maybe the different levels of marketing or what type of marketing seems to be effective from both sides. What the seller expects you to do and then what you find to be actually effective marketing in the market to attract buyers at some of those different break points in luxury listings. So $1 million plus to 5 and then above, and then you've got listings that are 20 million plus. And so kind of describe maybe what those different marketing items look like in those different break points.
Yeah, so I think what's important to know is how seasonal it is at certain levels. So you start there, when we're having this discussion, I don't even know what today is, June 19th or something. So it's, but the point is after July 1st, probably at about $2.5 to $3 million, it is amazing how many of those sellers are gone in the summer. They have second homes or their families and they're taking extended summer vacations because they can afford to. And it just gets really quiet. So some of the mistakes I see some agents is that they don't know that, because they just haven't lived it. And so they're taking price reductions too late in the spring season, or they're making placements, right whenever the fish are leaving the pond. So sometimes we're proactively taking those off, to reset days on market, give the house a rest. We're all experiencing a slower market now. But that's kind of one thing that's important right now at this time to be thinking about.
Great point.
And, on that note, kind of everybody knows that the spring market's the A market, but the fall market's the B market, and it's the second best opportunity. So we try to kind of load our marketing to launch right around that time frame that, like I said, the fish are returning to the pond, which would be kind of middle of August to late August. If you're going to be sending letters out, that's the time to do it. Things like that to catch those people in stride. But as far as what do we do differently than the person that has the $500,000 listing than the $5 million, we try to elevate everything from the graphics that we send out. We're always going to do floor plans. A lot of people do that too. But then it gets into when you get up over that level, maybe you're doing kind of a higher end video. We just finished one on a listing in the W penthouse, and those can be really effective. But then I think beyond that, the expectations for the clients are that if you're going to have a spot in a publication, then it maybe be a little bit more prominent. So I will say that it can get expensive. I think you have to have a governor there because you can spend a lot of money, and then if these listings are not moving, it can bankrupt a lot of agents.
Right.
And I've seen it happen. So it's kind of a high risk, high reward, and it's so I would say you can't get carried away with it. It needs to be always effective. Digital marketing is becoming more prevalent, and that's something that I think you can kind of leverage those dollars more. But and then letters and having kind of lists of people that have money, because obviously the nice thing about this is there's fewer data points, fewer people that can afford a $10 million house.
Yeah.
So we do cultivate lists of those people so we can put this in front of them.
How do you see the buyer pool? So when you're in that price point of, let's say, 5 million and above, are you looking at it? Is it typically buyers that are local, or is it's from afar, or it can be a little bit of both? I'm trying to think, like, how far out do you have to kind of stretch your marketing to attract those eyeballs?
And I think that's sort of a seductive thing, even, whether it's us or our competitors are talking about that it's going to be, someone from overseas, and that happens, but the reality is most of the time they're local.
It's local, yeah.
And so you need that in some ways to make sure that the seller feels like at least you're getting the word out to that maybe 10%, but 90% is going to be local. So it's more important, the local publications, whether it's Candy's Dirt, on the digital side, or things we're doing with a company with Modern Luxury. I think those are important because they're more focused here. And but the reality is a lot of times we know who the buyers are, and it's just kind of connecting the dots. And that is one thing I will say. Having one listing, you're a little bit on an island based on an information basis, because you don't know who the buyers are that are out there. And that is something that we have an advantage, because we know we've seen that this person looked at this one, so it's not, brain surgery. We'll just pull that list up and then call that agent at company X and say, you need to show this listing we have coming on the market, and make them look good because they now know about something that's not yet on the MLS. And that's what we do.
Yeah. So it's interesting to hear about that life cycle kind of being different of those summer lulls. It's an earlier spring and then a fall market. When you're working with a buyer, I mean, how does that translate when you're working with a buyer too? As far as preparing the buyer when the best time is to look for properties in those price points.
Right now it's a buyer's market. I mean, and I think most agents know that, but I would say that across the board, it's just definitely the buyers have the leverage right now. We've seen more terminations than we've seen in a long time. Buyers are almost looking for a reason not to purchase something right now, because it's the reverse of what's happened in the last 5 years. When you have a trajectory like this, and people have that sense of urgency, because if I don't buy now, it's going to be more expensive. And as interest rates were hiking up, then that was also giving that sense of urgency. Now interest rates have come down, but prices are softening, and buyers see it firsthand. And I know Steve Brown just had an article in the last week about Dallas being overinflated by as much as 14%. Well, the buyers read that, and again, it just makes them kind of back off. So, I think that's something that if you have a buyer right now, you're in a good spot. I will say that what I'm still seeing premiums paid for are houses that are brand new, or have had complete renovations. So that's a word to the wise for sellers is, hey, this summer, if you want to spend some money and get prepared to have a more turnkey listing in the fall, that would be really smart at any price range, frankly. But right now, I think the real opportunities for buyers are those houses that need some work, but are in a real A-plus location. Because I almost feel like even some of these seasoned buyers are taking kind of a B location just so they don't have to go through the headache of redoing something, even if it's, relatively an easy redo. So that's what I would tell buyers, my buyers, is let's look for those really sought after locations with good floor plans, but maybe need a little bit of work. That would be the counsel I'd be giving them now.
Yeah. And so with sellers and buyers in this price point too, do you see a little? It sounds like what you're describing a little bit too is that they can be a little bit more patient sometimes, because certainly, like when we have 2 kids, and it's like, okay, it's time, we got to go, and here comes the third. Now it's time, we have to move. It seems like sometimes there's a little bit more discretion in, we don't have to move at this point in time. If the right deal comes along, the right location comes along. So I can see where that life cycle can kind of get stretched a little bit.
Yeah, and this, a good example of that is typically, the coveted buyer is the relo buyer like yourself that comes in and they need to buy something. But I've seen several relo buyers recently. One that I ran into at YPO, and he said, Ryan, I saw several properties in the 5 million range. This was, say a year ago. And he was ready to buy, but they're coming from up north, and they're getting hit a lot harder than we are. And everyone needs to kind of realize that, is that they're taking it on their house in their respective city, and then they come here, and then all of a sudden it's like, well, I'm not going to get that level of discount, but that's where their mentality is. But when he came, he decided to just see what would happen with their house. Comes back 6 months later, all those houses are still in the market, and they're on average $500,000 less now. So 10% less. So he said, thank God I didn't buy. But now he's a little gun shy, And he said, I think we're just going to lease. We didn't typically hear that even a year, 2 years
Right.
ago. Those really low buyers always bought. Now they're considering leasing. So that's kind of a shift, but it
Just kind of playing the game like maybe we're not at the bottom yet. Maybe there's even more to go.
That's kind of, I think, where people are, where is the bottom? But I think for those buyers right now, why not make an offer and find out?
Right.
And it's almost, and we hear that as listing agents, like, well, or sellers are saying, just tell them to make an offer. And sometimes that's the hardest thing, is to get that buyer. So I've kind of seen two properties. It's either that new or newer construction selling, or it's like a screaming deal.
Yeah.
But the other 90-something% of the houses fall in between, and it's difficult right now. It's a tough market.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think this was really great because, I mean, I think there's some really nuggets for folks to take away. Like, one would be, find someone you can partner with, find that mentor that's in any type of specialty that you're thinking about doing, that someone can kind of help you break into that entry. And then you really do have to be an expert, not just on the types of properties, but the types of clientele that would be the sellers and buyers of that property. And so you are clearly that. And we should just do every video in one of your listings because this is pretty nice. We'll just hang out here for the rest of the day if that's all right. So right. Yeah, we'll wait for a buyer to come in. We'll make a sale and we'll be done. Yeah, very good.
Wonderful.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, thanks so much for being on this. I really appreciate it. And everyone, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Market Shapers. And for those listening on the new podcast, thanks for tuning in that way as well. So thanks a lot, everybody.